Hi everyone, and welcome to the lab for the second model, at least the start of it, the spy case. This is our image or our goal, and I say reference here because a reference image really isn't a duplicate of the finished product, but this model shouldn't be the one that you actually end up with. It should actually contain some characteristics that you yourself wanted to include. I have kind of made it a little bit so you can make things the way you want them, but the majority of the main structure should end up exactly the way mine is. So with the last model, what we started with, or what we ended up with, was some basic principles of starting out with a primitive object, forming it into what we want, making duplicates if necessary, and then using another primitive object to make the next piece. Now, you don't always have to do that. So for this model, what we want to try and focus on is constructing this model from mostly one primitive. Once we get to the lashes and the handle, we'll need to, we don't have to, but to get the optimal look we want, we're going to use some other pieces and bring those in. In the class, we introduced the idea of using smoothing and understanding what smoothing is. It adds a more of a realistic effect instead of everything being 90 degrees and unrealistic. So far, we did look at the edge loop tool. We kind of touched on the offset tool, and we'll look at those again. And working from a reference image is always easier, with character modeling especially, but image modeling and textures and things like that, it's also very useful, if not necessary, to work from some kind of reference image. Now, that does not preclude the idea of working on the fly, kind of getting an idea or prototyping an idea just loosely based on what's in your head. Nothing wrong with that. But the best artists or the best designers always work with at least something image-wise or an idea to fall back on, even if it's a document that outlines what they want, or an image that vaguely represents something, either the look or the feel or the atmosphere of what they're trying to model. Alright, so this is our goal. Alright, so we can look here and we can see we have a case, and one of the things I said inside of class was we need to think about, before you start modeling something, is the initial structure. Okay, we know that this is going to be a cube or a quad. We know that, I shouldn't say quad because that's a face, but so it's going to be a cube, and we'll want some edge loops here and here and here and here. We need an edge loop going lengthway here. We see that inside of this inset, we're going to need some edges here and here, here and here. On the depth, we're going to need some edges here, or height rather, not the depth. Depth is this way. So whenever we first make our initial primitive, we should keep that in mind. In class, we modeled something different here in the middle, completely screwed everything up, which is a good point to illustrate that modeling things or designing things on the fly, there's nothing wrong with that. But be prepared for the repercussions of just going in and throwing some extrudes together, etc. Sometimes you break your edge flow, which is exactly what happened in class. So we'll try to leave that part out this time, and we'll just use this little inset piece here, and we'll include some kind of emblem at the top. We're also going to throw in these I don't know what they're called. It's those little rubber things on the outside of a case that stops it from scratching the floor, or from the floor from scratching the case. Excuse me. Alright, so let's get started. Alright, so starting out with the scene, I'm using Maya 2016 for this. There's no reason why, I just happen to have it already installed on my Mac. Alright, so let's start out with a cube. Immediately take it, center it out. Alright, so it's centered in the scene. And let's go ahead and size it up. Okay. Need a little bit in width. Alright, good enough for government work. Alright, so with that done, let's go in and start adding some subdivisions. Alright, so let's go and throw in 12 on the width. Obviously that's going to be too much, but we'll come back to that. 4 and 4, always a good start. Actually 2 and 2 would be better. And let's see. So let's see, we need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It doesn't look right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So why not? Why is it whenever I put 6 inside of here, it comes up with 5? Well, this is why. It says subdivisions. It's not talking about how many edges. Are there 6 subdivisions? Yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So keep that in mind whenever you go into your inputs and change the subdivision numbers. You're entering how many edges or how many subdivisions you're going to end up with, not how many edges it's going to make for you. Okay, so keep that in mind. Alright, so with that done, let's go in and start modeling. Alright, so I don't want to keep going back to the reference image because I like to work on the fly. I like to get an idea of where I want to go. But, you know, to each his own. If you want to take the image and go back and make it exactly like the image, that's fine. I'm not going to do that. But just so you know, that's kind of my workflow, is I get an idea of it and then I go in and do what I want to do to it as far as the rough idea. Alright, so I need 2 edges here. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this edge and I'm going to, let's see, is bevel not here? There we go, bevel that edge. Now whenever you bevel an edge, it just splits it into 2. That's it. And then you can move it around or whatever. Okay, it's a very useful tool. Something like that should work fine. I'll grab these outside edges, use the scale tool, and increase the size. This middle edge, that's not even a middle edge, these 2 middle edges, I'm going to go ahead and spread those out too. And these 2 are a little bit too wide. So I'll move those out. Alright, something like that will be fine for me. I'm going to grab some faces now. remember the different toggle buttons we discussed in class. The shift key is a toggle select. If I hold down shift and select that, it's unselected. If I hold down shift and select it again, now it's selected. If I hold down alt, actually on the Mac it's control, I guess. No, I'm just using a Windows keyboard. But if you hold down command, or I don't know, I'm using a Windows keyboard. That is the unselect. Okay. Now if you hold down shift and control together, it's the toggle, so it's just select. Okay. It's not a toggle, it's selecting everything. Okay. Now control by itself is unselect. So, I can't select something again. And shift is the toggle one. Okay. Alright. So with these selected, I'll go and do an extrude. I'll just change the thickness. Like so. It should be fine. Actually, a little bit more depth wouldn't hurt. Something like that. Alright. Where do we go from here? Well, let's see. If we turn on smoothing, we can immediately see that this is nowhere near the shape that we want. Now, when we were in class, I wanted to just add some edge loops because someone asked how they work, and But you shouldn't really add the edge loops so early to define smoothing. Let's say, for example, I want to go in and add some edge loops here. And I start adding some edge loops to sharpen everything up. Like so. I'm not going to do all of them, I'm just going to do this to illustrate a point. Alright, so now turn on smoothing and everything's a lot more smooth. And everybody's happy. But here's the problem. Let's say later on, I want to go in and do some manual shaping with the vertex tool, or the vertex selection group. What you'll find is all of these extra edge loops have made it a little bit more difficult, because with these new edge loops comes new geometry. With new geometry comes more problems. So what you should really do is focus on your basic look without the additional edge loops initially. Adding edge loops to a smooth model is kind of like finish work. That's something you go in to do refinements or corrections later. All right. Now you should always plan for adding the edge loops, but at such an early stage, it's not really mandatory to, or even advisable, to go in and start adding edge loops at this early in the game. Okay. All right. So looking at the model, we see that we have this edge going around. That's the seam. But we also have this geometry here on the front that kind of makes a housing, or just an inset for the clasps or the locks, whatever you want to call them, for the case. All right, so that means we do need to add edge loops here, not for refinement, but to actually define something, and that's fine. All right, so I'll go into my Insert Edge Loop tool. If you're curious, I'm getting to that very quick Insert Edge Loop tool by holding Shift and right-clicking. Okay? And whenever I do that, you'll see you get the most common tools for whichever selection set you have. Now you'll see if I change to faces and then I shift and right click, the selections change. Alright, because these are the most common selections for faces, and likewise for vertices. Some of them all stay the same. The multi-cut's always there. Alright, so just so you know that. Alright, let's go ahead and do an insert edge loop tool, but here's some problems. First of all, edge flow is on and I don't want it to be. Secondly, I want to make two edges and I want them to be an equal amount apart and away from the edges on the outside. So let's go into our insert edge loop options. Alright, so we want multiple edge loops. I'm going to turn, where is it? I guess edge flow was turned off. It's weird that it was doing that then. Alright, so I do want two. I don't want to fix quads. I don't want to use an equal multiplier either. Alright, so then I'll just insert there. And that's it. Then with everything still selected, I'll go into my scale tool and give it some space. Maybe something like that. Alright, then I'll go and grab these faces. Maybe I might want to hold down shift while I do so. Alright, then I'll do an extrude. I'll just change the thickness. Something like that. Should be fine. Alright. Turn on smoothing to see what we got. Alright, so we do have that kind of inset going on there. Alright, so is there anything else with the base structure that I need to wait for? No. The biggest parts of the structure have been defined with this model. Now, what that means is now that it's okay to go in and add edge loops. The only thing that's left to actually define is this seam right here, the opening for the case itself. Alright, so to get that, let's go ahead and go into edge mode and insert edge loop options. I'm going to use one, and I'll just make one right in the middle. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is take a look at this model. You'll see that, yeah, not there. Okay, did I close it? Alright, let's open it again. And if you look closely, you can see that, well, what exactly is this seam? Well, what the seam is two very small pieces of geometry extruded out. This is one piece, so these are all faces going up through here, and this is another one. Okay, that's all it is a little extrusion here and a little extrusion there. Okay, so what we need is to turn this middle line into essentially 4 lines. Alright, so what we're going to do is we'll do a edit mesh, or sorry, where is it? Edit mesh, I was right, bevel. So we bevel these lines. We move them close together, something like that. Okay, so now they're split into 2. Now we can select all these lines again, shift and double click to select both lines, and do another bevel. So now we have 4 lines. Alright, so to get all these faces, let's click here and then shift, double click the next one over, and you'll select the entire ring of polygons. Same thing on the bottom, we'll shift select this one, then shift, double click on the next one in the line. That way we get both of these. Alright, then we'll do an extrusion, like so. Alright, and I'm going to have to do some work here because I guarantee that is too much geometry. But let's take a look at it. Smoothed. Alright, it's too much geometry, too close together, but we're on the right track. And it's extruded too far. Alright, so the thing we could do is shrink it down like that. Just use the scale tool. That actually doesn't look too bad. It's not what I had in mind, and it's going to fold some geometry over on top of itself. So let's not do that. Instead, let's go back, get all this geometry, and let's grab these edges and scale those. Bring them in closer together. Now we can do that same technique, and we'll do an extrusion now. Change that thickness ever so slightly, and look at that smoothed. That looks a lot better. Alright, we can go and tighten it up now. So go and insert some edge loops. What? Edge. I want the edge. There you go. Alright, so I kind of want it smooth there. But on the inside, yeah. Go back to relative. On the inside, I do want it a little bit tighter. On the front, on the top, and the bottom. I can go in and grab these edges. Let's do this. Alright. Double click here, double click here, and we'll bring those closer together. Double click here, double click here, double click here, and double click here. And we'll bring those closer together too. Alright. Looking a little bit better. So I do want to have a little bit of smoothing here. Not a lot. edge, maybe here and here. Let's take a look at that. Let's grab that edge I just made and let's move it up just a bit. Same thing on the bottom one. Move that out just a bit. And this one on the bottom inside. Let's try and scale that in just a bit. Just to make not so sharp of a cut. Not terrible. Well, maybe it is terrible. All right, let's fix this. I'll scale that out to reduce that ridge. I might just delete it. No, I won't. There must be another one. Yeah, there it is. You're causing me all kinds of trouble. It's a little bit better. I did lose definition though. That'll work for now. Alright, so with that done, with the seam done, I'm going to go ahead and start adding my edge loops to give some definition here. Alright, so let's insert one on the outside along the top. On the inside of the extrusion, on the outside of the extrusion, along the bottom. Alright, on the inside here, top, around the bottom. Same thing on the bottom part. Turn on smoothing, see what we got so far. Alright, good enough for now. Need to get some sharpening here. Same thing on this one. And down the side and down the side. Alright. So with our smoothing turned on, it's not looking too bad at all. Need to get some more definition. We don't need to bother with that part. Alright. We do need to have some... No, I think I already have it. I already did that, didn't I? Yeah. Alright. On the bottom one, I did not. Okay. Smoothing turned on. Not bad. A little bit smoother here than I would like. So I'll throw that in. Same thing up here. It's a little bit smoother than I want. Instead of adding more, I'm just going to change the ones I already have. Move that further in. Move that further in. Yeah, this is one too many. I'll just move the ones that I have in. My mistake that I'm fixing was I was just pressing delete. Don't know why, but I did. Alright, so if you remember, I said in class that you should never do that, because when you do that, I'll just add this for demonstration purposes, and then I'll just delete it. What you do is, now I can go in and see that the vertices made from that edge are still there. Alright, even though I did delete the edge, the vertices that made the edge are still there. And that causes you to have, you know, see, this is supposed to be one edge, but it's not, it's two. See? You can see them changing as I go. If I go into vertex selection mode, you can still see the vertices there. This could lead to some problems. So whenever you do that, whenever you want to delete an edge, make sure that you hold Control and press delete. That way, there are no vertices left over. Alright, so go back and redo. doing. And I'll add the outside there, sharpen that up. And one on the bottom. There we go. Don't want to forget about the bottom part. I'll add an extra edge loop here and one here. Alright. Alright, so with that done, now we can go ahead and split this thing in half and mirror it. So I'm going to go into Edge Selection, Shift right click, Insert Edge Loop Options, Multiple Edge Loop, just one, put it down the middle. Go ahead and switch my tool back. Alright, so I can now right click, go into Face Selection mode, make sure I get all of these faces, and delete them. Right click, select the object, and we'll mesh and mirror geometry. This is going to be in the positive X. Since the part that we have is in the negative part, we want this new one to be in the positive X. Alright. Alright, so it didn't connect. So we need to turn our threshold up. You've got to be careful with it too. Well, you know what I'm going to do? Undo there. And when I do my mirror, I'm going to do border edges. Alright, and I still have the same thing. I got these little edges. That should not be connected there. The seam I made was so small that it connected some things that shouldn't have been connected. Now, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really matter. Okay, so should you go in and fix that stuff? Yeah, absolutely. But for right now, it doesn't really matter. And I don't want to take time going into and showing how to do something that we haven't really covered yet. Just so you know, what you would do is you would not connect everything like that, and probably move everything on that edge further towards the origin, and you could try and connect it that way. If that didn't work, you could go in and merge some vertices together, or weld them together, which are things we haven't covered yet. Alright, so to finish off this stage, let me make sure that doesn't change anything. If I just leave it alone, it doesn't look like it does. Alright, so to finish this stage of this model, preview. Oh, you think? No, I didn't figure that out. Thank you for notifying me that it wasn't working. Alright, the next thing we want to do is these little pads on the outside. I'll go ahead and add those. And we'll save this middle piece and the emblem and the handle and the latches for class. Now that's a lot for class, so we'll do this outside bumpers, rubber bumpers or whatever, and we'll do this section now, okay? None of it is very difficult. Alright, so let's talk about those bumpers first. The bumpers, all they really are sets of geometry that's been set aside on the model to be extruded. That's it. And we can look at the model and determine, okay, there's one on the outside and 3 on the bottom. Alright, no problem then. So let's not just go in and start throwing around some more geometry where we don't have to. You can go away. Or maybe you're just going to stay there and make me angry. Alright, fine. Stay there. Alright, so we're going to mirror it again anyway whenever I make these bumps. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to go ahead and delete that mirror. We're just going to have to do it again anyway. Really? Alright, sorry for the hiccup you just saw. I had to pretty much redo most of the model from an increment that I made just about 15 minutes ago. But I'm exactly at the point before Maya actually crashed on me is what happened. Alright, so if you go to File and Save Scene, you know what Save Scenes do. Save Scene As, you can change the name. But Increment and Save is a good one because whenever I click Increment and Save, it will add a 001 to my file. If I do a File, Increment and Save, the next one will make, let's say for example, let's make some changes that I'm just going to undo. And I'll do Increment and Save. Now it has made a number 2. And the good part about that is, if you go through a model, you make some changes that you don't like, but you want to go, essentially back in time, a day or 2 when you were modeling, you can go back and find one of those increments that you actually saved before you did the changes that you want to undo. All right. So anyway, so looking at this model, what I want to do is I want to make these bumpers on the back and on the side. Now, since I'm going to make a mirror anyway, I deleted the other half that I just mirrored a moment ago. Alright, so on the side and 3 on the back. Number can be whatever you want. If you don't like that look, you can do whatever you want to do. Alright, so I think maybe here would be a good place. Now I don't want to make new geometry that I don't need. So I'm going to go into edge mode, insert an edge loop, maybe here, should be okay. And on the back, here. And I want to stay away from making any geometry here. I don't want to, or close to the edge, because I don't want to change the shape. Alright, so I can make one there. As long as it doesn't change the shape, I'll be happy with it. Change the shape of the inside part is what I'm talking about. And I can go here and make one as well. I want to be careful about making any edges around this area as well, because we don't want to change the shape of this inset piece that we're working on. Alright, so with that done, very simple procedure after that. We'll go in and grab some faces. Grab these faces. The same ones on the back side, like so. Same ones here, not that one. Alright, there we go. And this was the other one. And on the side. Alright. Now these aren't evenly spaced, but that's fine. Let's add some thickness, turn on smooth so we can see what we're doing. Maybe something like that. I guess that's fine. Not exactly the look I was going for, but I guess I can sharpen up the tops with more edge loops, but I really don't want to do that. I don't want to go in and add more edges than I really need for this piece. A little bit more thickness maybe, something like that. Let's see what it looks like if I just make a little insert on the top there. Yeah, that's better. And maybe not so chiseled there. A little bit smoother. But yeah, that's kind of what I want. Alright, same thing on the bottom. I'll insert an edge loop like so. Alright, I do need to add one here. Here to make that not look like it's really part of the case so much. Preview is really causing a lot of trouble. I don't know why. Oh, it's supposed to come up on top. I didn't even realize that it was made that way. You know what? We're doing something different. So redo. Besides, it wouldn't be a big deal to add that back in anyway. Alright, it in. Maybe not so close. Cut these off. Alright, there's another little hiccup because I ran out of disk space for the tutorial video. ScreenFlow uses a lot of space, so it's okay. We're pretty much finished with this section anyway. Alright, we got the little bumpers on the front, back, whatever, the back of the case and the side. Okay, if yours doesn't look exactly like this, fine. Ooh, look at that. Yeah, see, that's what I was afraid of. Moving some vertices around and mess things up. What is this line? That's the one that I inserted, trying to sharpen up the top over here. And that's a good illustration of what I was talking about when I said you don't want to just go adding some edge loops not knowing the effect it's going to have on your other geometry. That completely changed the look that I had. I still need to sharpen that up though. Well, I guess this is a good time to introduce a new tool. Alright, so let's use a multi-cut. Cut there to there. So we're inserting an edge loop to tighten this up without actually using an entire edge loop. There. We can cut it right there. I can cut it off. There we go. It does change the geometry a little bit here, but it's not very noticeable. Definitely not as noticeable as it was over on the front section. I'm going to do the same thing here. Now you can hold down Shift whenever you do this, and you can snap it to a percentage, a 10% snap, and it will fill it in all the way. Sometimes you don't want to go a little crazy with the points. You can always go back in before you press enter and make the point finalized, or make the line finalize, you can go in and change the edge just by moving these points. Alright, that's good enough. I'm not going to do the other two. I don't feel like it. This video is getting long, so. Alright. So now we can just simply select this half and we can mirror our geometry. And this time it worked no problem because I had it centered. Alright, to get it centered, if you didn't do it already, this is what I'm talking about. Make sure your grid is showing. Go into our top view. And what you want to do, and here's the problem. I'll show you that first. Select these vertices and I'll move them just slightly off. Okay? Or even slightly too much. Either way, it doesn't matter. Now, when I go and try to mirror, because it's not centered, it actually worked out. So, if you have your mesh threshold centered at the wrong place, or you don't have exactly the right amount, certain vertices will snap with each other that aren't supposed to be. See. Up here, these ones aren't all supposed to be one vertice or one vertex. They're supposed to be separate. And it's easier for Maya to do that if you have the side that's going to be mirrored. Like, it's going to start here and mirror over this way. If you have it centered in the world, if you have it directly on the 0, 0 axis, all right? So you want to try and get as close to the center point as possible. All right. Now let's go ahead and do that. Mesh, mirror geometry. Everything looks fine. Smooth it, and there we go. Alright, so during class we'll make that emblem. Since these things took so long, we'll make the emblem, and we'll make that little piece on the front here. Then we'll make our latches, and hopefully we'll be able to make our handle as well. Okay? See you in class. Bye-bye.